So as you've seen there, saw me feeding the swim. Hopefully I got that all on camera and it was all perfect. And as you saw, I was feeding upstream of my swim, and also straight out in front of me. What I'm gonna do is get a rod, cast a little bit downstream of that, and just wait on that. That way they're a lot more confident picking up the baits, and as they are picking up the baits constantly, they're also getting a lot more confident as they do it, and then they end up making a mistake and take your bait. So hopefully it all comes into fruition and it works out well. I'm fishing the swim here that's very deep. I found this, it's around about 19 foot deep. I'm hoping there's some biggies here, so I'm expecting more my downstream rod to go. The upstream is the one that you just saw me feeding with 18mm pillows in the dubby, and hopefully they're not very symmetric, so they're not going through the air very well, but as you've seen, it's really important to get a spread approach. So at the start, initially when you come to a swim, I do not go mad. You see a lot of people tipping in kilos and kilos for barbel. You don't need that, in my opinion. The best thing to do, and the way I approach it, is simply 2 handfuls in your hand like this. So if you bear with me. So as you can see, it's probably all going to tip out here, but that is more or less what I start off with on a session. So it's about two handfuls. I start off with that. Okay, these are 18mm, but obviously if you're using 14mm, it's the same principle. 2 handfuls, goes out into your swim straight away via catapult, and you'll simply put one of the baits into the catapult catty, and you're firing that out. I don't know if you can see that, but it don't really matter, does it? You're firing that out, and then you're going for the next one. You're going for the next one. It's carp fishing. You know, carp fishing anglers do it all the time. They spread their bait, and they spread their bait because fish, when they're fishing, they're so used to seeing the feeder in the river, they're constantly being fed on that line, and they eventually get wise to it. They prefer, in my opinion, a spreader bait that they pick up, and as they gradually do that, they become more and more confident as they do it. They work harder also, and that is also a very good point, you know, to bear in mind as well. They work harder to find the bait, so that also takes longer to find the bait, and that is very important, because the longer the barbel are in your swim, the longer and more chance you have of actually catching one. What tends to happen on a feeder approach, or what can happen, is that because you're feeding one line and one line only, generally with a feeder you're casting to the same spot, so you're feeding that one line. So the barb will come in on that line, take one bait, or all that bait that's in that swim, or they've been attracted to that area via your feeder, and they're on that particular area. They'll start feeding around that area, take the boilie or take the pellet, whatever you're using, and they will simply spook. Now, say for instance that barbel does not get hooked up and it just spooks. It mouths the bait and spits it out. Now, that then spooks the whole lot of them that are in the area. Not just one. You know, big barbel tend to be in groups of 2s and 3s. Now, what can happen is that if they spook on one particular fish, the 3 that are around with that fish also spook. So 1 out, all out. With a spread approach, those 3 barbel are feeding on different lines all the time. So what tends to happen is that you could catch one from one line, you cast a little bit further and be on the feed line or something like that, that it could be sitting above the feed line, and you'll pick up another. They don't spook on that approach. On this approach,
scattering the bait. They do not spook as much as they would if you're fishing a feeder, and that is because everything with a feeder is confined. With a spread approach via a catapult, it is not confined. It is not confined because you're spreading it all around your swim, and it's simply sitting in an area, sitting in a crevice, or sitting to a natural spot downstream, and once it sits there, a barbel comes along, grabs it. It's one piece. It's not the end of the world if if they take that. But it is generally, if you're fishing a feeder, it's all or nothing with a feeder, and that's what I've tried to explain to people. It's either you're gonna get one fish, and you're then trying to work hard to catch the next one, or they could be absolutely ravenous, and in which case you're going to catch them one after the other. But that tends to happen with shoalies. With bigger fish, with big barbel, you will tend to get one on the feeder, or if they're really, really hungry, two at most, and then they'll spook. And it can happen. You'll probably get one time in the season where you've done really, really well and had 3 or 4 doubles on a feeder, on one particular night or one particular evening or day. But generally, the spread approach will catch you more fish, bigger fish, consistently, and it will not do what a feeder does in the sense of scaring the barbel away, and that's pivotal really to successful barbel fishing. The important element of barbel fishing really is just the continuity in feed. The feed is very important. You catch, like I showed you, I catch one fish, or I'll get one indication from those two handfuls of bait. I will get some kind of indication. If I do not get an indication, after an hour and a half, I put in 6 more of those. 6 more. Just 6. And I'll constantly do that every hour and a half, every hour and a quarter, until I get some form of indication. As soon as I get a tap on the rod tip, bang, another 6 go out. Because you are feeding to bites. You are not feeding for the sake of feeding. You are not wasting loads of money on bait for the sake of it. If the barbel aren't feeding, they're not feeding. If they're not there, they're not there. So that's how I do it. I get the barbel into my swim. It's very important. If you keep the bait trickling in that sense, in that way, then you'll keep catching barbel. Once you catch one, I put another handful out, and that is very important as well, because you're rewarding that good behaviour. I know there's a lot made of that, you may laugh, but I think it's very important. You reward something that's happened. So if you get a barbel, if you catch a barbel, you're putting another handful out, you're rewarding that good behaviour by feeding them more, and then you're waiting for the next one. And it could be that you're not waiting very long, because with the spread approach, like I said to you, they're feeding on different lines. They're not feeding on one line which a feeder gives you, they're feeding on many different lines. And three different barbel, or 2 or 3 different barbel, could have all come into the swim at that point and fed in different lines. And it means, well, it basically means if you cast out again, you could catch another one theoretically. But sometimes fishing doesn't always work like that. But I do know from doing various tests and doing feeders in comparison to the lead will catch you bigger fish. The spread approach will catch you bigger fish generally, and it also, you catch them a lot quicker. So you take it as you feel necessary, and put it into your own fishing. If you if you give it a go and see how it goes, and hopefully you'll do just as well as I have on it. So I'm sure once you get on it and once you start trying it and you see the benefit of it, then you'll be hooked, so to speak. So I'm going to get on with my session now. Hopefully there's going to be some fish tonight, and if so, I'm going to record them and get them on camera.